Welcome to the PrepZone Show, presented by Bevill State. I'm your host, Johnathan Bentley, joined with my co-host, Zak McCullough. Zak, the football season's almost over. We've already gone through all our high school teams.
Yeah, high school's already done. And certain college teams in the state, their football season is over.
Yep, they're done.
Other certain teams that
Stanford, all finished yet. Yeah. South Alabama.
Kind of rough one.
Yes,
Troy.
but yeah, it was a bad, state college teams did not do well this year.
No, not by their own standards.
Even Alabama.
Not by their standards.
Yeah.
But
Yet.
Yeah, it could flip.
Yeah.
It could flip.
That's not over yet.
No,
these other ones are over. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about high school stuff here, since we are primarily a high school show.
We still love our high school teams, even though the season's over for them. We still love them.
They should be at Birmingham this week.
Should be.
Had we had anybody, but I'm telling you, these teams that make it to Birmingham are just. That's just so next level.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the best team going to Birmingham this week is Saraland. They're undefeated. And Ryan Williams should still be there as their wide receiver. I mean, the talent level on these high school teams is unbelievable.
If Ryan Williams was there, I bet they'd be ranked nationally.
Nationally, like number one.
Yeah, because of a player like that. But, I mean, it's funny. All of our teams lost to great teams, I think, in the third round.
Well, once you get to the third round, though, anybody you lose to is going to be great.
But then those teams turned around, and every one of them got beat the next week.
It took everything out of them to beat our own.
And, I mean, how good is Moody to beat Leeds 42-0? This tells you all you need to know. Yeah. Sulligent went down. They had a really close game. And then Hackleburg got hammered by Wadley. I mean, that tells you these teams are just...
Everybody gets hammered by Wadley, though.
Yes. And Wadley's playing for a championship.
Yeah,
They've never won one.
This week.
Yeah, could happen. But we're going to talk about our local teams since we don't cover Wadley much.
No, we don't.
No. Or Hackleburg.
We still love Wadley and Hackleburg, but not like our own family.
These are family.
They're family.
Right, we know these guys. All right, so Winston County 12-1. We're kind of doing our little player of the year finalists.
Yeah, our finalists. Here are our finalists.
End of the year finalists. So our team of the year finalists is pretty obvious, right?
Your top three teams are going to be very, very obvious.
So this was our top three, I think, in order here. The way we finished the year: Winston County 12-1, Corner 11-2, Lynn 11-2. Any of these you want to talk about? We've said everything about these teams.
We've said almost all there is to say. Every one of them had great years. We really didn't know what was going to happen. Winston County was just one step away last year. They took that step this year.
Mm-hmm.
Corner, we were expecting them to go down, considering they had to go up to 5A. So we were expecting, kind of a letdown from last season.
Definitely.
Well, that didn't happen. They went up. And then Lynn, you lost Cale Tittle, who's one of the best players they've had in a long time at Lynn. They wind up with the same exact record. So, I mean, they all had fantastic, fantastic seasons.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we had those teams to cover because it was watching Winston County was something, 12-1. All right, so that's our three finalists for team of the year. And next year, how about we get a Walker County team?
Let's get some. We have Jefferson, Winston, and
everybody represented except our own county.
I know it.
Which we only have one county playoff team, so we need to get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
moving in the right direction.
Our one county playoff team, they got cheated because having to play Brooks in the first round. Brooks went to the third round.
They won their next game. And that was your 3 seed. That was a tough region.
That must have been a tough
really.
Region.
So, okay, player of the year. This one's tough. I mean, we've had slam dunk player of the year. It was obvious. Like last year, I think it was Cale Tittle.
Yeah,
it was pretty obvious.
And then Cam Deaver the year before that.
Deaver and Tittle both had great years the year before.
Yeah, but this year it's kind of up for grabs because there are so many good players.
We had 2 guys rush for 1,000 yards. I mean, 2,000.
Yeah, 2,000.
Yeah, I can't remember a year where we had. It's been a long time since we had one guy. Well, Deaver did it. Yeah, but 2 in the same year. So we'll first mention Chris Clemens. I wrote down some stats here. It's a lot of stats. There's a lot of numbers.
For Chris Clemens, especially.
I'm going to keep this short.
Playing both ways.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he could probably make all-state team as a DB, but...
He's even better as a running back.
Yes. I mean,
he's a good wide receiver, too.
I think he's best at receiver. When you have 19 receiving touchdowns in high school, that's unheard of.
Especially a Winston County team that really primarily ran the ball. Now, their offensive system changed depending on who they played.
Yes.
If they could beat you through the air, they would do that. If they could beat you on the ground, well, they'd just do that, too.
I remember one of the games I went to, the funny thing was you throw a short out to Clemens, 5 yards, he goes 50.
Right.
Then Kelly could also he also bombed it to him in the same game. I think it was Cold Springs. So, I mean, he could do it short and make it himself, or they could throw it long and he catches it.
That's an extremely talented team Winston County had this year.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch. So, he had 1,073 rushing with 15 touchdowns, 1,084 receiving, 1,184. I get these numbers. I can't read numbers. So, anyway, what it comes down to, 38 total touchdowns, 2,000-something yards. I mean, just
38
you couldn't
touchdowns.
guard the guy.
Is that good? Is 38 touchdowns good?
It's not like, what was the Henderson guy for Elba this year? I think it's 60.
Yeah, but he's going to be playing
I know that. Yeah, that's
SEC football for 4 years.
I mean, Clint, this is probably state record book type stuff, but somewhere in the list. All right, so then we go to Griffin, Jaden Griffin, door running back, quarterback, a little bit of everything also.
He did it all and did it all well.
Yes. 24, 22 rushing, and it was 11 games.
Yeah, only 11 games to get 2,400 yards.
33 touchdowns, all on the ground. So, yeah, I mean, this guy, it's kind of the same thing as Clint. You just could tackle him.
Yeah.
This gets in the open. He had 2 games where he played a quarter. And in those games, he had over 300 yards. I mean, it's just insane.
If he'd have played every single minute of every single game the entire year, how many yards would he have wound up with?
Probably 3,500.
I mean, but that would have been disrespectful.
Yes. Coach Williams is nice over there.
Classic.
A mean coach.
Oh, man.
He would have had 50 touchdowns.
Like, especially me, if I'm the head coach, you're playing a heated rival, let him play 4 quarters and get 500 yards.
And then eventually it's going to come back on you.
It will, yeah. You can't.
And you can't do that to a county team. So, yeah, I mean, that's a restricted 33 touchdowns. Held back.
They held him back a little bit.
And so that's 220 a game rushing.
Not terrible. Not terrible.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Goodness, that's really, really impressive.
And then we'll go to Spencer Unruh for corner, our last of the 3 finalists. So at least we have everybody represented here.
That's true.
The county team.
Walker, Winston, Jefferson.
Mm-hmm. So Unruh finished with 36 rushing, 23 touchdowns, and he missed 2 games. So he had over 700 in the 3 playoff games.
Wow.
I think it was 750, right at 750.
And corner's a really talented team. They didn't have to give him the ball as much, but he's so good. And
it tells you they won the games he didn't play. Now, they were super close.
They were
really close.
It got very interesting and very dicey in some of those games.
Yes.
The John Carroll game.
Had a stone carver at the goal line to win the region. I mean, on the last play, next to last play. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. So, that's our offensive guys. Now, on defense, real fast, we got Braden Roberts.
Yeah, Braylon Roberts had a fantastic season for Lynn on defense, and that's what we've come to expect of him. He's really, really impressive as an edge rusher on defense. And, oh, by the way, he played running back, quarterback, and wide receiver, and tight end at times this season. So,
my gosh. Yeah.
He's just basically, if you played Lynn, you see number 10, you realize you're probably in trouble.
Yes, and it's been like that for years. The last 2 years at Lynn has just been an absolute beast. So, 120 tackles this year, 24 tackles for loss, and 11 sacks. So, just the norm.
That's a quarterback's nightmare.
Yes. And he also could play quarterback. I mean, how often do you see that? He can be a terror on the quarterback or play quarterback. So,
and as a wide receiver, he's your quarterback's best
friend.
He
was one of I think he was their top receiver as well. So, yeah, this guy did everything. But it's got a tough loss. We say that for Lynn every year.
That's right.
That was another really tough loss. But, yeah, I mean, this Roberts is in the North-South All-Star game for a reason.
Deserves it.
For a 1A school, that is very rare. I'll say that. It's all big schools usually.
Right.
All right, so we'll move to Trace Cagle for Lynn, 130 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, interception, and a fumble. So that was also in 10 games since they didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, Oakman didn't make the playoffs.
Those averaging 13 tackles a game.
Yeah, Trace Cagle is just another phenomenal defender, and he's been like this for years. I mean, he's been every year. He's been playing at Oakman. It feels like forever, and going to be a tough graduation.
Another tough loss.
Tough loss for him graduating, but still, he also punts, by the way. Yeah. He punts, and he's a really, really good punter as well. So he's just another. My goodness, how much talent we have in the Walwyn area.
I know.
Year.
Golly. Yeah, Lynn and Oakman that's 2 at the top. The last one we'll mention is JoJo Odom for Jasper. Now, he wasn't a linebacker. He was on the line, but 71 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, and 10 sacks, and an interception and a touchdown. So
all in 10 games.
Yeah, that's another 10-game guy. He might have missed another one. I think he might have only played 9 games. But yeah, either way, I mean, just a force.
Impressive.
Yeah, I remember early in the year, I think he had 15 or 16 games. Tackles in a game early. But yeah, and he graduates. All these guys are gone.
I know it.
Hopefully we see these guys play in college.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Going to have a new slate of finalists at this time next year, but these are feels like you're losing generational talents.
Yeah, we're losing every one of these finalists except for Unruh, who is unbelievably back again. Yeah.
Watch out, 5A.
Yeah, corner, he'll be back. So, I mean, that's some pretty good guys. We left some out, but these are.
Every one of these guys could be player of the year in another season.
Yes, especially on offense. I mean, unbelievable. Two 2,000-yard rushers and a guy that had 1,000 receiving and 1,000 rushing and 38 touchdowns. So it's going to be very difficult.
It's going to be a very tough decision to decide who gets the awards.
Really don't know. Now, okay, so we'll jump to the Coach of the Year,
which is also a tough race because there's some really good coaches in our area.
Yes. So first off, let's mention Hastings first because we've known this guy for so long.
He's the reigning Coach of the Year, I do believe. Lynn's Mark Hastings, and he spent time at Oakman in years past. Just a phenomenal coach. Always been a great coach. Does a fantastic job. And the players love him. The community of Lynn loves him. Just had a great season this year, especially you lose your do-everything quarterback in Cal Tittle, and you wind up going out there and you almost did not miss a beat.
Yeah. Wins wherever he goes.
Right.
He'd go to your school, you might have one bad season, then he's winning.
He's got it
almost every place he goes.
His first year at Lynn, they went 2-8. But we knew, obviously, what was going to happen, and they jumped right back up into the top of our area. And it's been fantastic since he took over. 32
wins the last 3 years. So let's mention Reeves real fast. David Reeves at Jasper is on this list because of the jump they had.
He took a 1-9 team from last year, took those same players, and turned them into a 7-3 team this year.
He always talked about those guys being there. Everybody was back, basically. And they got in the system. Boom, they're 7-3. They're that close to the playoffs, and maybe next year, hopefully, take another small step forward.
That just shows you what an offseason with the same coach and the same team and the same players, the same routine. That shows what that'll do for you.
Yeah, Jasper really needed that too. They needed a season like that. It was a lot of fun.
It really could have been a lot better. I mean, they were 1 point away from the playoffs. This is just a great season for Jasper. But you know what? I hope next year overshadows it, and it's looking like it could.
Yeah. I think a lot of those guys will be back again. So, all right. Winston County, Caleb Simmons. So his second year made a huge jump.
Second year broke about every single record that Winston County had. Maybe even the best team they've ever had. Definitely the best winning percentage. The season that they had was phenomenal. And he took a team that really did not have a lot of depth. I mean, it wasn't a huge roster. This isn't a massive 2A team. And he's competing against teams that have a lot more depth than he did. And he turned his players into football machines, and it was a phenomenal season.
Yeah. It's crazy to have a team with that few players not really have a devastating injury. I mean, last year in the game 1, they lost Clemens, and that turned everything around.
That's right. Imagine, if he'd have stayed the entire season, Clemens did. That 5-5 they had last year.
Oh, yeah, playoffs.
It could have been 10-0. Could have been 9-1. Something along those lines.
Yeah, he's that big a difference maker. And I do Landon Kelly, the quarterback. I mean, that kid took lick after lick, especially in that Sulligent game, and he just kept getting right back up. It was a tough kid. And they lose him too, so yeah.
But I mean,
it's some rebuilding a little bit, but they've done it before.
Especially on offense. I mean, Caleb Simmons, you look at some of these games, they threw for 400 or 500 yards. And then also they played Decatur Heritage. They had 2 fullbacks the entire game in a 4-man eye. Ran the ball. They just win however.
Yeah.
That's what Caleb Simmons does. He wins however he has to.
Yeah, that's what I like about a coach, diversity. You can do it this way, you can do it that way.
And
whatever the defense gives you.
Watching film against that Winston County team this year might not have been that helpful because he would trot out something new every single game, and it felt like it worked all the time.
I bet Decatur Heritage was a little surprised. The last one on the list, obviously, is Trent Campbell from corner. Year 2 for him too, and he did it again, which I don't know. I was doubting Corner to start the year.
You
I
should
became
never
a believer.
doubt Corner.
Took me a long time. I finally came around. But 11-2 again, and yet again. Now they've set the standard. You know, right. You broke all the. It's kind of like Winston County. Now you did all this stuff. We can't say that next year.
That's right.
It's the first time they did this, and region championship, all this 11 wins. Now you can't say that anymore.
You know, and they're losing some talent. They're bringing a lot back. Trent Campbell's a phenomenal coach. He's done a great job. And we said it earlier. He went up from 4A to 5A to a brutal region. And it's like nothing was wrong. Everything went smoothly. 11 wins. Pretty good.
Yep, that one loss to Briarwood Christian. That was it. All right, so real fast, what do you think? Was there a big turning point on these seasons? I have Winston County. I put Addison. That was the opener.
First game of the season, absolutely.
There was really no turning point. They just smashed Addison and just kept it going the whole year.
And it was really a great season, especially for our playoff teams that made the third round. Lynn, they started out well. Really, the turning point for me, though, they lost their quarterback first game of the season, and they've got a roster. It's a work in progress. They played Barry, a really
game you went to,
really good Barry team. That's a fantastic Barry team. And they found a way to win shorthandedly at Barry. And it was, after that, it was no stopping them.
That was it.
Until they run into Hackleburg inevitably. But
and another injury. So both times they got Hackleburg, they had injury problems.
They had
one before the game, one during the game. But yeah, Barry was very good. Kind of came out of nowhere this year. And for Corner, I go back to that. It was Winona. It was at Winona. I remember watching it. And Winona had just scored, so they're going crazy. There was maybe a minute and a half left. And then Keaton Coffey's first year starting, bombs a touchdown to beat them. I mean, it was just took the win right out of Winona, and that kind of set the tone. They just rolled after that.
If I remember correctly, someone sitting at this table not named Zach McCullough picked Winona in that game.
I also picked the Barry to beat Lynn. Another game you mentioned.
To beat
yes.
Lynn, so.
Hey, when you only get 73% right, you lose 27%.
We're not the experts at football like our producer Jake Aaron is, but these teams, it didn't take an idiot to know these were fantastic football teams.
Yes, and I will mention Jasper really fast. So that Coleman game could have detonated their season.
It could have.
Could have turned, here we go again. We lost Coleman, but then they turned around and beat Shoals to show that this team was different this year.
And they go 7-3. They play Shoals one week. They play Muscle Shoals, great football team. Upset them. Next week, they have to play another great football team in Hartselle. And they lost by 2 touchdowns, but really that wasn't so bad a loss because of how good Hartselle is. So it was just a fantastic season, and especially, like you say, after losing a heartbreaking loss to Coleman.
That was brutal.
The season could have gone in any direction of ways, and they did lose the next game after that. Had a tough team to play. Mm-hmm. But after that, they just shot right back up, and their only loss was to Hartselle afterwards.
Yeah, that Shoals, I think that surprised a lot of people. So they lost to Coleman by a point, beat Shoals by 1 point. Wild. Probably the game of the year around here in the county. All right, so that ends our discussion for high school. We'll jump into college and talk about UAB's miserable season.
Is that really what we're going to talk about?
We'll talk about the Iron Bowl, since we're both there.
Yes, we were.
So
as
we were
fans.
Both in the stands so early that we could see each other across the entire stadium waving at each other.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how early we were in the stadium.
That's how early we were.
I'm not used to that.
No, he's not, but...
No. I like sitting down as the game kicks off.
So
Or if I'm at Auburn, I want to see the Eagle fly. So that's 20 minutes before. But yeah, that was really early for me.
If the best part about getting there first is you don't have to wait an hour in the concession stand lines.
No, we walked straight up. That is true.
Yes. You want to order a barbecue nachos? Just go in and get it. It's great.
That is a good point. All right, so the Alabama team, I guess end of the half was kind of the difference of the game, would you say?
I would. Auburn has it first and goal at the 2, down by 11. It's 14-3, and the Alabama defense stuffed them. And Auburn had to settle for a field goal, 14-6. Bama gets the ball. First 2 possessions of the second half. Scores.
Straight down the field.
It's 28-6. Then there's a scuffle on the sidelines, Auburn's next drive. And then after that, Auburn's able to go down there because of the penalty and score. And after that, nothing happened on offense.
Yeah, Alabama had 2 bad penalties. That one probably should have went both ways, I think.
Probably should. Let's see. It was Devontae Smith and Keandre. Let's see what. I'm not familiar with the Auburn roster. Keandre Lambert Smith got tied up on the sidelines. It probably should have been flags going both ways. Instead, it only went on Alabama. Auburn went down there and scored. That's the reason it was 28-14, not 28-6, after the Tigers added a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, but Alabama just kind of...
Meh.
Yeah.
4 turnovers. 4 turnovers. You take those 4 turnovers and turn those into touchdown drives, your final score was 56-14.
Or if Auburn could turn them into touchdowns, which they cannot do.
No,
I mean, I remember looking at the scoreboard, and it had Alabama for 3 turnovers. Auburn had 6 points. I was like, you can't do that. You cannot do that.
And I'll say this. Auburn played well. They fought hard.
They really did.
They were outmatched, and I think everybody knew that. But in the Iron Bowl, does that really matter? No. Anybody can beat anybody in any given Iron Bowl. So Auburn, they only lost by 2 touchdowns. And do you want to lose to your rival? Of course not. But still, there's some room. There's some hope for next year, especially the last couple of games for Auburn to end the season. Beat ULM.
Turned around a little bit.
You didn't suffer the upset like they did last year against New Mexico State.
That's true.
Beat Texas A&M. So maybe there's some promise heading into next season for the Tigers.
It's better than it was early in the season or even a month ago. All those losses.
Yeah, once they lost to California.
Oh, it's a terrible loss. Oklahoma was probably the worst one, though, because the game was, you had it in hand and he threw a pick 6. And,
everyone loses to Oklahoma.
He had a pick 6 against Alabama and Auburn, that guy. Yeah. What a menace.
Everybody loses to Oklahoma. What's the big deal about that?
So Alabama and Auburn lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma?
That's right.
And they had to have both those wins to make bowl games. Both of them. So, wow. Incredible. Who would have had that?
Not me.
So, would you grade Alabama in that game?
I'd give them a B- just because you survived the emotion of the rivalry.
Yeah, just get through.
You get through it. That's right. We saw what happened last year. Alabama completely outmatched Auburn on paper, but it's the Iron Bowl, and it was 4th and 31 Hail Mary that won it. And granted, that happens more often down at Jordan-Hare than at Bryant-Denny, but still. So a rivalry matchup, you expect those to be a little closer than they should. Just ask Georgia or Ole Miss, who had trouble with their own unranked rivals over the weekend.
Similar. Yeah.
Very, very similar. So I can't say it was a terrible game. It could have gone a lot better, though, for Alabama.
Yeah, Auburn probably gets a C.
I gave him a D just
maybe
because
a D, just not capitalizing on those turnovers.
You get 4 turnovers and only 1 touchdown, 2 field goals out of it.
Some very bland play calling down at the goal line.
What I didn't understand from Hugh Freeze is Oklahoma just ran for 250 yards the week before, and you try to throw it with a questionable quarterback compared to you have one of the best running backs in the league, and you didn't really utilize him that much.
I'll never understand it. It's like he's been underutilized. I don't know how he got 1,000 yards. They never used the guy.
Well,
he did go off that one game. Yeah,
the Kentucky
he had some big games, but
was a quarter of his yardage on the season.
Underutilized all year. Yeah, just unbelievable.
Would you say that's poor coaching?
It's got to be on the coach.
Would you say that would fall on Hugh Freeze though, or Derek Nix?
I put it on Freeze. Okay. He's over everything. Something's got to change. Yeah, I mean, you have a mid-tier quarterback at best and a great running back. And let's just put it in the hands of the quarterback.
Now, pardon my lack of Auburn knowledge, but will Jarquez Hunter be back next season?
No, he's gone.
He's gone, okay.
He is gone.
So now he'll go to the NFL and turn into one of the great running backs of the league, and you're left to feel miserable. Kind of like Bo Nix.
Bo Nix had a great rookie year.
Monday night, he had a phenomenal game against the Browns.
8 wins already.
That's a great season.
Yeah. Really, really happy for him. So him leaving was the best decision he ever made.
And speaking of the Nix family, his father, Patrick Nix, is coaching for a state championship this week with Central Phoenix City.
Yes, and I picked them to win. They'll be playing, this week. All right, so is now, of course, the discussion everyone's talking about. Will Freeze be on the hot seat? You thought I was going to talk about Alabama in the playoffs. I was not going to talk about that.
Freeze will start the season on the hot seat, but as long as he probably needs to revenge some of the losses, like to Oklahoma, to Vanderbilt. If he loses to those 2 teams next year, then he might be in trouble.
Yeah. What other SEC coach will be on the hot seat? Is Brian Kelly yet?
He's definitely on the hot seat. Other than him, though, I mean, it was Jeff Lebby's first season at Mississippi State, and they went 2-10.
Yeah,
he inherited a bad situation.
Yes, he did. They'll give
his quarterback got hurt first game of the year, missed the season. So you can't really say anything about that. So other than Kelly and Freeze, Napier might be on the hot seat.
He really kind of saved his job.
He saved his job. He
was going to be on the way out.
He was going to get fired, but then they said, you know what, we're going to keep you. And I think they won their last 3 games.
Yeah. So, I did not see that coming either.
It's probably not going to be that many coaching changes. In fact, I would be shocked if we saw any new coaches in the SEC next year, unless somebody were to poach maybe Clark Lee from Vanderbilt or Shane Beamer from South Carolina. Don't know what will happen there. But.
Yeah, that'd be rare to not have a single coaching change. All right, so what does Alabama need? I think they'll be in the playoffs.
I really
do. I mean, I think they'll be in it because of the brand. And because there's not really another, who you gonna pick?
I mean,
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, no, and Alabama,
Ole Miss,
South Carolina. They might look better, but you got to imagine Alabama beat South Carolina head to head, so that's going to matter. Right? It was 2 points, and at the time we thought it was terrible, but in reality, beating South Carolina by 2 points,
yes,
I'll take it.
South Carolina is playing really well right now, but you beat them head to head. And I think, as you said before we came on, that Alabama's they have two wins over 5 and 7 teams.
That's right,
and that's it.
The worst record of a team that Alabama has played this season is 5 and 7. So Auburn last week, worst finishing record of any team Bama played this year.
I couldn't spit it out, but that's well said.
And Wisconsin was 5 and 7 too. Mm-hmm. Other than that, played some 6 and 6 teams, lost to a couple of those in Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. We won't talk about that though, will we? The win over Georgia, who might very well be your SEC champion, that's impressive. Of course, the win over South Carolina is good. Absolutely smashing Missouri, looks really good on that resume. Dominating at Death Valley looks good on the resume. And who else is going to get in? I mean, Miami, they haven't played a ranked team this season. They have not played a single ranked team.
Is that even possible?
I didn't know it was. I didn't know it was possible, but apparently they did. And their losses, they lost to a Georgia Tech team, and Georgia Tech's looked good.
Oh, that's a great game. Yeah.
But that Georgia Tech team that beat Miami was without their quarterback for most of the game. Their star running back, Jamal Haynes, did not play. He was in for one snap, took it 85 yards to the 1 yard line, got hurt, and wasn't back for the rest of the game. He was done.
And they beat them.
And they still won. So Miami's not a good football team.
Now, who are South Carolina's losses to?
South Carolina lost to Alabama, Ole Miss, and LSU.
Those
are good losses.
They almost won that LSU game.
They should have. The referees kind of caused that loss.
Wow. How big did that end up being?
That's huge. Because if South Carolina wins that, they're in the playoffs. If they were to win any one of those games. Now, Ole Miss demolished them, dismantled them. But, Alabama, they got really, really close. 2 points. They were driving down to kick a game-winning field goal when Lenore Sellers threw an interception. And against LSU, they lost by 3 because they missed a field goal as time expired.
Yes.
So they are really, really close to being 11-1 and in the SEC championship game playing Texas.
Wow, great season by South Carolina. And they're probably going to get left out.
Probably will. Yeah. They'll go to the Citrus Bowl and play Illinois. Maybe Ole Miss will go to the Citrus Bowl and play Illinois. And
what a disappointment for Ole Miss. You lose to Kentucky at home, a 4-8 Kentucky team. You win that game, you're in. So South Carolina and Ole Miss got to be kicking themselves.
If I remember correctly, that might be Kentucky's. In fact, that is, I think, Kentucky's only conference win was against Ole Miss.
Swooned after that.
At Ole Miss.
Yes, huge early season win. Yeah, everybody thought Kentucky was going to be good after that.
And then they followed it up by losing to South Carolina, which really wasn't that bad of a loss after all.
So we start talking about Alabama's playoff chances, end up talking about Ole Miss,
Kentucky and South Carolina.
Yes,
but yes, I believe, getting back on subject here, I believe Alabama will be in the playoffs. I really do.
With this field, you'd be like, well, Alabama doesn't deserve it. But if you look at the teams in this thing,
who else does?
They're not good. I mean, the teams that are automatically in aren't even that great.
No, you've got Boise State, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. Somebody from the Mountain West is getting in. Boise State or UNLV, they're getting in. And like I said, we'll talk about that in just a second. And somebody's got to win the Big 12. It's going to be either Iowa State or Arizona State. That'll be interesting. But those are two teams that are ranked not below Alabama because Boise is actually one spot ahead. But they're right along that same level and, maybe not as good after all. So there are teams that are going to get in with those automatic bids that aren't as good.
Great. Yeah. So Alabama plays their best, they can beat anybody. I think we know that. That's the matter. Just got to do it.
If Jalen Milroe does not turn the ball over, runs well, throws well, Alabama wins a national championship. If he plays every game of the playoffs at his best, nobody is going to beat him. I mean, I would guarantee it.
Well, guarantee.
But he plays like he did against Oklahoma, and Alabama finishes last place in the SEC, except for Mississippi State. It's just unbelievable.
That big of a swap. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all or nothing.
Because there's nobody else. Nobody else is going to do it for Alabama. The defense, hit or miss. Running backs, not great. Wide receivers, somebody's got to get the ball to them. And so it's up to Milroe whether this team is going to, if they get in the playoffs, which is not guaranteed, but if they do, it's up to Milroe as to what kind of run they can make.
Yeah, it's all on him.
It's all on Milroe.
So we'll jump straight to Zach's picks. How many we got this week?
Only 5.
Oh,
and
really?
These are the ones where the winners are almost guaranteed to go to the playoffs.
So no Incarnate Word on there this
No,
week?
Incarnate Word is not on there. Let's see. I could have gone with Incarnate Word. Could have gone with the SWAC Championship, Southern and Jackson State. But I'm not. Instead, I'm only going to go with 5. First is Friday night, the Mountain West Championship between UNLV and Boise State. It's at Boise State. This is basically a playoff game because whoever wins this will go to the playoffs because these are the only 2 group of 5 teams ranked, UNLV and Boise State. So they played once this season. Boise State won by 5. Does UNLV get the revenge or does Boise State ride the momentum they've had the entire season and go to the playoffs?
Now, who's the coach at UNLV?
The coach at UNLV, that is a good question.
Well, somebody I knew the name. I can't remember. So anyway, I'm going Boise State just because it's at home. I mean, guys, for everything, too. So, yeah, I mean, it was really close. Was that at Boise earlier?
It was at UNLV.
So it was really close to UNLV. I think Boise pulls it out. Even though beating the same team twice in a year, it could be very difficult.
It's hard to do. Of course, Washington did it last year against Oregon, beat them twice.
That's right.
That was a good Oregon team. So we'll see what happens there. I, too, will go with Boise State just because they've got by far the best running back in the country in Ashton Genty on their team. And I don't think anybody can stop him. I mean, this is a Boise State team. They're 11-1. That one loss to Oregon, the number 1 team in the country.
Early.
And Oregon had to hit a last-second field goal to win it.
Wow.
Final score was 37-34.
Good grief.
So Boise State's a fantastic team. Will they win? Could they win a national championship? I don't know. But I mean,
at least get in there.
They hung in there with the number 1 team in the country, so I reckon they can do it with anybody else. Next up, the Big 12 championship. Whoever wins this goes to the playoffs. The loser, I would almost guarantee, does not. Iowa State and Arizona State playing in Arlington, Texas. What sees you?
Arizona State was picked to finish last in the conference.
Dead last.
So I'm thinking they're like Auburn in 2010 or something, or 2013. So I'm picking Arizona State, but I mean, that's going to be tough. Iowa State just unimpressed, but here they are with the same exact record. So, yeah, I'm going Arizona State to make the playoff.
Here's a name for you to remember. Cam Scatteraboo.
Oh, the running back.
The running back for Arizona State.
Seen him a lot.
Probably the best running back in the Big 12. He's done a great job. And their quarterback, Sam Levitt's been really impressive this season as well. Kenny Dillingham's done a good job coaching, even if he nearly blew the BYU game earlier this season by deciding to run backwards 50 yards, and the time actually didn't expire when the quarterback threw it out of bounds. So BYU got a Hail Mary off. Didn't matter, though, and that's why Arizona State is here, and that's why I think they are going to the playoffs, because I'm picking the Sun Devils.
Yeah, great season for them. No one saw that coming.
Yeah, in their first year in the Big 12, might win that championship. So it's been a good year for them. And it's been a good year for Iowa State, who, side note, if they do pull off the upset, and it would be an upset because Arizona State's the favorite, it would be their first conference championship since 1912. Wow. Guess what conference they won?
The Big 8.
Not indeed.
The Big 6. What was it?
Missouri Valley.
Oh, wow.
The Missouri Valley Conference.
The one Jacksonville State was in at one point.
Yes, actually.
This is their first time they've ever won that many games.
Really?
Yeah, for Iowa State.
That's true. It's a phenomenal season. Matt Campbell's obviously the best coach they've ever had in Ames. Mm-hmm. So great season for him. I think the meaningful part of it ends here, but we'll see. Next up, the Big Ten championship game. Penn State and Oregon. Number 3 Penn State, number 1 Oregon. Had to think for a second. Penn State this season, they've been okay. Not great. Oregon's undefeated, although they haven't really beaten anybody down like you would expect. Yes. What do you see here?
I'm taking Oregon. I'm unimpressed with Penn State. They was supposed to be Ohio State. They take care of Michigan. They're in this game.
That's true.
We get a rematch. Instead, Ohio State's sitting there in the playoffs now, and I guess both these teams will probably make it anyway.
Anyway, yeah, they're going
anyway. Yeah, but Penn State, I don't. But, everybody's beatable this year. That's all you can say. They could win this game, but I'm going Oregon.
Oregon's the number 1 team in the country. In their last 13 meetings with top 5 teams, Penn State's 1-12.
Oof.
That's not good.
That's a lot of Ohio State and Michigan.
That's probably a lot of Ohio State and Michigan. And actually, Iowa's on that list too. They played Iowa when Iowa was in the top 5 a couple of years ago. Penn State, they're one of those teams that they're always going to be good, but they're never going to compete for a national championship. They're not.
Let's be real here.
Let's be honest with you. Oregon, on the other hand, can compete with a national championship. I mean, in recent memory, they've been to 2 national championship games.
They'll be 0-3 this year. I don't know who's going to beat them, but yeah.
Somebody's going to beat them. Well, it could get interesting. Depends on how seeding goes and all that for the playoffs.
It's going to matter.
But we're both picking Oregon just because they're phenomenal and Penn State is questionable. So 13-0 for Oregon, the only undefeated team in college football. Hard to imagine. The parity we've seen in college football this year has been unbelievable.
Yes, like the NFL almost.
Now, a very important games for some of us who cheer for Alabama, Clemson and SMU, because if all the favorites hold, Alabama would be the 11th seed in the playoffs. However, Clemson beats SMU, Clemson gets an automatic spot in the playoffs, Alabama gets bumped out. So if you want Alabama to go to the playoffs, you better root for the SMU Mustangs in this game.
Absolutely.
What do you think happens?
That's why I picked Clemson. No, I don't know. I have no respect for SMU, and they're actually really good. They're better than Clemson.
They are.
I mean, they're favored in this game.
2.5 points.
So, but I don't know. I just feel like Clemson's going to pull one out for Dabo. I have no reason to pick them. But usually when I do that, I come out looking terrible. So it's probably the case again.
Yeah, I kind of hope you do. No offense to you, but I do want my team to make playoffs.
But I think Alabama will make it regardless.
Really?
Somehow, somebody else will lose. Something crazy will happen. Yes.
The committee loves Alabama.
I mean, how many times on a Sunday do you look up after church and they're in there? So it just
feels like it's
happens
happened
all the time. So
that happened last year.
But I will take Clemson to pull the upset there.
So you think Clemson pulls
the upset? So if Clemson pulls the upset, does the SMU make the playoff?
Depends. It'd be between.
Well, that'll be very interesting.
It'd be between SMU, Miami, and Alabama. But and then what do you do? Yeah. I mean, SMU's 11-1 right now, and I really don't think it's going to come to that. Preston Stone's a good quarterback, and SMU in the first season of the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Incredible.
Don't get me started on how a team from Fort Worth, Texas, is in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Don't get me started. But anyway, SMU wins the conference in their first year there. We're going to leave it at that. That's what I think.
SMU and Arizona State win their conference in the first year.
In their first year. And Texas could win the SEC in their first year there. And that's our next game.
Yes.
Georgia and Texas in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. The first time they met, Georgia thrashed the Longhorns 30-15. Does Texas get their revenge?
Initially, I was thinking yes. Now I'm thinking no.
Really?
That's basically a home game for Georgia.
But they don't play well in Atlanta. They lost to Alabama there about a half a dozen times.
This is not Alabama. This is a team they're better than. I think. It's Texas favorite, right?
5.5 points.
Georgia played a terrible game against Georgia Tech.
Should have lost.
So I'm saying maybe they were looking ahead. Maybe. I don't know how you can do that against a rival. But Georgia, boy, they're all over the place. Kind of like Alabama. But I will take Georgia to pull it off.
You will pick Georgia? Well, so will I. Just because I know Texas is gunning for revenge. But look, Kirby Smart is a motivational genius. When they played earlier this season, Texas was a favorite. And he motivated his team perfectly. Just did such a great job of motivating them. Because he said, nobody expected us to win this game. We came out here and won. Same situation. I think the same result. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs. Their 4th straight appearance in the SEC championship game.
Incredible.
They lost in 2021. They won it in 22. Lost last year. I think they win this year. So back and forth, seesaw.
And lose to Auburn next year. So that's going to be wild. But okay, does that wrap up?
That wraps it up. That's all the meaningful conference championship games.
Yes, we'll get to UC Davis later.
We will get to Cal
Division
Davis
2.
later.
Yes. So that wraps up the show. Want to, I guess we'll be picking high school stuff next week. High school player of the year and coach of the year. And all
talking about who got left out of the playoffs and who made it in.
Yes.
We will know a lot more next week.
Yes.
We will know a whole lot more next week than we do now.
Don't have to worry about Auburn losing anymore. That's all for next year.
I'll tell you what, though, kind of off subject. I'm kind of glad for Alabama that it's out of our hands and it's into somebody else's hands to get us in the playoffs.
Yeah, you sit and wait.
Because I don't know if you can trust Jalen Milroe in the regular season.
And now you don't have to worry about it.
No, you don't.
Yes. All right, so it wraps up our show. I want to thank Bevill State for sponsoring, Jake for producing, and we'll see you next week.